Did you hear about the wooden tractor? It had wooden wheels, a wooden engine, wooden transmission, and it wouldn't work. Oh well, there goes my invite for next year. So hello, and thank you for having me. What a privilege and a nerve-wracking experience. My name's Andrew Donaldson, and I'm the founder of Comrie Croft. There's Comrie Croft, pretty much in the middle of Scotland. It's a 93-hectare farm, about 40 minutes west of here, on the Highland Fault Line, which runs across Scotland. And here's the farm. Until the early 90s, it was a traditional mixed farm. But it was too small and it couldn't support the living of one household. So the landowner, before my time, converted one building into a backpackers hostel and let the fields to a neighbour. I started as an employee of this tourism business in 2003, and in 2008, my wife, Melise, and I led a buyout of the farm, together with 50 family, employee, and community co-owners. Our vision has always been a kind of holistic regeneration involving people, community, and nature. And here's the motley crew, a few of our crofters, as we call our team, out in our Christmas jolly. Our farm is inhabited by a group of 10 diversified and collaborating farm enterprises, each driven by a person with passion and talent. Some of the enterprises are independent, while others are part of the mothership. Together, they include a community-supported market garden and flower farm, eco-lodge, barred wedding and events venue, a farm shop and cafe, a bike shop and mountain bike trail centre, a forest school for outdoor nursery education, camping and glamping, self-powered expeditions, and farm tours, events and education. Quite a lot going on. There are approximately 40 full-time equivalent employees or owner-managers at the farm, though perhaps only about 5 of those people might describe themselves as farmers. Here are some examples of the enterprises in action. Weddings combined with mountain biking can happen. Healthy food grown on site and tasty but not so healthy food baked on site. The Forest School, which is a new enterprise for us about 1 year ago. The Eco Lodge, as listed on a well-known booking website, with a nice comment. I made sure it was a positive one. A Nordic Kata, so that's our version of a glamping enterprise based on a kind of Scandinavian model, but made wind and Scottish weatherproof. And this is our community-supported market garden called Tom na Ha. Tom na Ha produces a very wide range of veg, salads, soft fruit, tree fruit, and flowers for on-farm sale, including 150 weekly veg boxes and some hospitality customers within 10 miles. The Croft as a whole welcomes around 50,000 visitors annually and generates £2 million annual revenue. Our guests and visitors are a diverse bunch, but number one in the kind of ranking are families from the central belt of Scotland. So, what is Comrie Croft doing about net zero and sustainability? And what do all the different terms even mean? What is our goal? Sustainability is a term that, in my opinion, has lost its kind of precise meaning and is often used to greenwash, make things seem perhaps more eco than they are. In basic terms, it often means maintaining the current status, whether we're talking about the climate, nature, a family farm, or community. Despite this, it's commonly understood, and I'll still use it sometimes. Net zero is the Scottish Government's aim for the country by 2045 to help address the climate crisis. At farm business level, net zero means eliminating all unavoidable direct emissions, called Scope 1 and 2, as shown on this slide. And indirect emissions, for instance, from guests travelling to us, and from the carbon footprint of supplies that we use, these are called Scope 3 emissions. Those are the kind of things that we can't directly control ourselves. and then compensating for the emissions that can't be avoided. Is Comrie Croft a net zero business? No, not yet, but we do have a plan and we're working towards it. Our overarching goal is we call regenerative impact, to make things better, not just less bad, to thrive, not just survive. It's a holistic thing that includes prosperity and opportunities for our team and community, the natural environment on the farm, the quality of food and flowers that we produce, and our wider impacts on the climate. The aim for all our impacts is to minimise the negative, grow the positive, and ensure balance. Before getting into the how of net zero and regenerative impact, what about the why? Where does the motivation come from? For me, as I'm sure it is for many of you, it's about my family, my community, the land, and the nature around me. It's about good jobs and profitable enterprises, about young people being able to live and work in rural Scotland, about physical and mental health, about rural culture and being a good neighbour. It's about good food and trees and all the multitude of things that a farm can provide, including sharing inspiring experiences with other people. It's also about the climate. These things are not separate. Our farms provide opportunities not just to contribute to net zero, but to make life fantastic. Here's a snapshot of Comrie Croft's emissions in 2019, 2020, and targets until 2050. The solid bars, the blue and the beige coloured ones, represent our carbon emissions, blue for our own emissions, and brown for those that also include what we call the scope 3, the supplier and the customer emissions connected with our operations. The dotted lines represent the balance between emissions and annual on-farm sequestration, the soaking down of carbon dioxide through tree planting and exported renewable energy. As you can see, based only on scopes 1 and 2, that's this line, the ones in our direct control, the farm would already be net zero. This is sometimes called carbon neutral. But the most difficult and often the largest emissions are scope 3 emissions, those caused by what we do and emitted by our customers and suppliers. And including those, we aim to achieve full net zero, including scope 3, by 2035, around about there, or before. From 2019 to 2020, we can see a large drop in emissions from here to here. That was mostly due to two factors: switching to 100% renewable electricity contracts and a lack of customers due to a global pandemic. Inevitably, those numbers have risen slightly, but due to ongoing efforts to decarbonise our business and those of the economy at large, we believe net zero by 2035 to be very achievable. So how on earth can we measure regenerative impact that I've been going on about? After all, we measure our financial performance. Why do we not measure other things if they're important? And how can we expect to manage them better if we don't measure them? The best tool I've come across so far is called B Corp, but it is extremely rigorous and not for the small business taking first steps in measuring this kind of thing. We're in the process of becoming a B Corp, which allows us to measure not just net zero, but a comprehensive range of impacts, including environment, customers, staff, and community. Though it's hard work, this is becoming like our non-financial accounts, prompting continuous improvement. One example of action it has already prompted is having clearly defined positive impact purchasing policy that commits us to a minimum of 50% spending in our local area. All of this creates a USP, a unique selling point, a point of differentiation that our guests and visitors love. Earlier this year, our efforts were recognised when we won the inaugural Visit Scotland Thistle Award for Responsible Tourism. Here we have a picture of one of our net zero projects. This is called the Smart Grid and was installed in 2018. This consists of 65 kilowatts of photovoltaic panels, 6 car charging points, 15 kilowatts of battery storage, and a clever self-balancing system that makes sure we always use the power in the most efficient manner. And if there is spare after we're finished using it, then the batteries are charged, as there often is on a sunny day. And then it gets exported down the grid, anything that's left. On average, we generate around 60% of our own electricity, saving about £25,000 a year and paying off the capital costs in under 4 years. We've also replaced our oil-fired heating system with one fired by locally sourced wood chip. We replaced LPG, liquid petroleum gas, cooking and drying appliances with electric ones, and we've recently replaced all our fossil-fueled vehicles with electric ones. Increasing the amount of nature on our farm has been super important. And what is more important, and nature also contributes to net zero. Sadly, the nature statistics are a bit depressing. In my lifetime, a 70% loss of global biodiversity, and in the UK, a 20% figure over the same time period. The UK is the G7's most nature-depleted country, and so the opportunities for restoration are massive. I know it can be a bit controversial in farming, so I'll whisper it, but we've been rewilding more than half of our land since 2008. That means we've removed most of the human intervention from the least productive land, as shown in the picture here, and allowed nature to take its course. Together with nature-friendly farming on the lower ground, the results are startling. A huge increase in bird life, including the return of 5 red-listed species, the return of red squirrels and pine martens, and a lively buzz in the summer air that is noticeable to everyone. I'm not advocating turning good farmland into nature reserves, but boy, we really need a lot more nature-friendly farming and rewilding. And through agritourism, it pays. Involving our guests, visitors, and community in regenerative activities and principles is key to success, though it is also something where I think we are just scratching the surface so far. Here's a few examples. Wedding couples coming to get married at Comrie Croft sign up to an eco-wedding charter. This commits them to things like using UK farm-grown flowers, which we can happily provide, reusing decorations, and avoiding single-use plastic. Guests who arrive without a car get a 10% discount, but not just in the form of a discount. They get it in cash back or a voucher back to spend in the farm shop. We do tree planting and under-the-bonnet tours with groups, and obviously food and flowers that people can get involved, as shown here, in growing and eating, although hopefully not the flowers. Comrie Croft might be a bit of an odd sheep within agritourism. We have diversified from tourism into farming, and so our future plans involve more farming. I'm actually planning to become a bit more of a farmer myself, with small-scale livestock, dairy, bees, poultry, fruit nuts, vines, all in the potential mix. Training is required, so if anyone has any tips, please see me afterwards. As part of our whole picture thinking, we've also applied for planning permission for this development, which is an affordable eco-community housing project. And housing is a critical issue in our community, so we thought we'd try and do something about it, or are trying. It's with planners at the moment. Our solar panels are a great financial and net zero win-win investment too, and we'd like to get to the point where we generate at least 100% of our own electricity use on site. I was asked by Caroline to give some advice at the end of this, and I don't really feel qualified, but I'm going to give it a go anyway. So I think Scottish agritourism is really a sleeping giant when it comes to net zero and sustainability, the agenda. So let's grasp the opportunity with both hands. Renewables, particularly photovoltaic panels right now, are a bit of a no-brainer in terms of investment. So if you haven't got some, get some good advice and go for it with solar panels. making space for nature on the farm. Is there anything you could do to encourage nature? And learning. Carbon literacy is a great tool. We've done that with our team, and it kind of gets everybody onto the same page. But there's other sustainability training out there as well. And just educating ourselves is a great thing. And finally, penultimately, make a plan to reduce carbon emissions and increase regenerative impact. Scottish Agritourism or the Monster Farm Programme will probably be doing something in this space in the near future. Or for the really ambitious, have a go at a free B Corp impact assessment. And a simple one, if you're taking first steps, is to ensure that your electricity contract is from 100% renewable sources. And that is really where the biggest impact can be made very easily. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Andrew. And I'm sure you'd all agree with me. I think you're more than qualified to be giving advice, and what an incredible journey you've been on. And I think your approach to sustainability and net zero, it's so important to talk not just about climate and nature, but about the community, rural culture, and mental health. It's something we don't often talk about. So thank you so much for sharing your journey. I would just like to take the opportunity to ask you all to be thinking of some great questions for our panelists. I'm sure you've all looked at the Slido app, but you can either put a question in the app, or I will be taking questions from the audience at the end of the session as well. But moving on to our next speaker this morning, we have Lara Hourie of the Orkney Dairy. And the Hourie family have been farming in Orkney for over 100 years. But 3 years ago, they expanded their dairy operation to produce a range of products, including yogurts, hot chocolate, bombs, and milkshakes. And they became the first farm on Orkney to produce a farm-to-dairy product on the island. Lara is also a destination leader, and I'd love to invite her on the stage to share more of her story. Thank you, Lara. Thanks. I'm going to pour these.
Hello. I'm Lara. Just come down from Orkney yesterday, which was quite a long journey, but we're here now. So, as Claire was saying, we are Bain Farm in Sandwick in Orkney, which is in the west mainland of the mainland of Orkney. And we are 4th generation farmers, me and my brother. And yeah, just a bit about the business and how the dairy started. So, as you can see, this is the team of the Orkney Dairy and the farm. So from left to right is my little brother David, myself, my mum Kirsten, my dad Willie, and our full-time milker Stephen. So between the 5 of us, we run the farm and the dairy. So this photo was actually taken in exactly the same spot about 80 or 90 years ago, and this would be my great-granddad Bill, my great-great-granny Anna, my great-great-granddad David, and my great-uncle Arthur. So it really has been in the family for a long time. So in 2010, Dad read an article in a farming magazine on Fleckvieh cattle. I don't know if anyone's heard of Fleckvieh cattle. Yeah? So it's a dual-purpose breed from Austria, very similar to your Simmental type. And we took them home in the prospect of increasing the quality of the milk and just kind of making them a bit more durable. So the Holsteins, you know, we didn't really like working with them. And we took these guys home in a complete gamble to see if we could try and increase the quality of the milk. So we took 2 pedigree heifers home, followed by a further 7 later on in the year, as well as a pedigree bull. And now, 13 years later, the herd's 98% Fleckvieh. I think we only have 2 Holsteins left on the farm. And they're fantastic to work with. They're really good calvers. And the milk fever, mastitis levels have all dropped. They also contain the A2 gene, which in the milk lacks the I think it's the bee casein protein, which makes it a lot easier to digest, so people who are lactose intolerant are able to have our milk with no repercussions. And it was screaming out for a product to be made from it. So, moving on to how the dairy started. As you can see, the marking on the cow is actually the map of Orkney, which we've linked in. So I studied business management at university in Edinburgh, and I came home and I started working for the Scottish Agricultural College. Loved working there. We did records for over 90 farms. Leader funding was one that kept cropping up. You know, your single app farm applications, everything was covered, and it just really made me want to go more into the agricultural field. And one farmer came in one day and he said, I want to build a shed, put caravans in, and then 10 years down the line, I'll have a shed for half the price. And I was like, oh God, okay. And then he spoke about he's like, it's 50% of the total project costs. And then I kind of thought about it a bit more, and the cogs started turning, and I was like, I bet we could do something like that for the farm and make produce. And I went home to Dad. We were having tea, and I said, Dad, how do you think about me making yogurt and stuff from the farm? And he's like, Lara, you have no idea how to make yogurt. You have no idea how to make cheese. Where are you going to do it? And I was like, well, I don't know, but I'll have a look. And I showed him leader funding, which is by the local council and Scottish government. I said, look, it's 50% of the project costs. You know, there's definitely a way that we could do it. And he was like, okay. He was like, well, where are you going to do it? And I was like, I don't know. Maybe somewhere on the farm we could use one of the sheds. We could get an insulated container. And we kind of stumbled on the old workshop, as it's called, which was originally my great-grandparents' house on the farm. But it just kind of got a bit derelict. Everything was shoved in it. It was more kind of a get rid of all the junk that you could see place at the front of the farm. So I inquired to Leader in the September 2017. They were extremely excited because no one's ever done anything like this in Orkney before. And we applied in the February of 2018. So planning in Orkney is renowned for being extremely difficult. And because my parents want to build on the farm, because that was the original farmhouse, it meant that the planning wasn't through in time for the funding, and it actually lapsed in the first round. So we picked ourselves up again, and we went again for the second round. And we started doing work in the workshop. So this is the old workshop, as you can see. They did an extreme amount of work. And yeah, it took us about 1.5 years to get to the stage of where it is now. So this was about 3 years ago. So you can see everything's still on the walls. It was very new. And that took us on to March 2020, which we all know is when COVID happened. So I had a purpose-built facility, had spent all my money, had a serious panic, and was like, I genuinely don't know what we're going to do, because everything stopped for months. And I actually went and worked at the local butcher. I packed meat. I went and did housekeeping for the local hotels who were keeping staff who were coming up to work. And came the ideas of the hot chocolate bombs. So I don't know if anyone knows, but a hot chocolate bomb is a chocolate shell that you pop into a mug and you pour hot milk over the top of it, and it creates a luxury hot chocolate. So we seen, Mum came to me and she said, Lara, I think we should make these, because it was getting to the point of, I have no money, the whole thing's going to fold before we even start. You know, I'm going to put Mum and Dad in more debt. And it was a serious panic on, and we seen these guys, took a mold home from Amazon, bought chocolate out of Tesco, made one, put a video on Facebook, and it went completely viral. We had orders for over 500 within 2 days, and then within the 6 weeks, we had made just over 4,000. It was a lot of long days, no sleep, and luckily it was Christmas, COVID, so no socialising was happening, so it was constant work. And they very much saved the day. And they gave us a very large customer base, which we probably wouldn't have gotten purely through the dairy products. Bringing us on to April 2021, we were able to launch the yogurt and the milkshakes. So we do our core 4 flavours of milkshakes, which is chocolate, vanilla, banana, and strawberry, as long as a 5th that we change every 6 weeks. So at the moment, it's gingerbread for Christmas. We do a rhubarb yogurt, which is grown locally on the farm. We do natural yogurt, fudge, and we also do a lemon curd one. And this year as well, we just took out our new cheese, which won silver at the Highland Show this year. We've only launched it in July, and it's a garlic and herb soft cheese, which has gone down extremely well, which I'm really chuffed about. So from doing the dairy, it has allowed me and my brother to be involved in the farm more. He's just come home this year to work full time, and it really has allowed the sustainability and succession of the business to have a future rather than just purely milking. And from joining Agritourism just in February this year, it's really opened our eyes to what more routes we can go through. So we're planning on putting robots into the farm. We have a huge wind turbine which runs the farm, so there's power there which we can utilise. We would love to do a big farm shop and a cafe. The farm's actually located between 2 of the biggest historic sites in Orkney, so we have a natural passing trade. And as long as all our packaging and everything like that, we try and make it as sustainable as we can. But we are very much in infancy, so we're, as much as we try and see 4 or 5 years down the line, we very much struggle to see much further than a month in front of ourselves. So, yeah, we just have really enjoyed joining Agritourism because, as you'll see from this next 2 days, there's so many ideas and so many possibilities of what you can do, and it's such a great network to speak to folk and get ideas and advice. Because when I started this, I was completely out of my depth. I had no idea what I was doing, and there was no one else to really talk to. Whereas I think if I joined prior to doing this, it would have been a much, much smoother run. So as much as we make produce, we're the only farm who does dairy to the product. There is the cheese factory in Orkney. So there's 11 dairy farms in Orkney, which is now, whereas back in the 50s there was 119. It's severely dropped this last wee while. And it's a cooperative between the farmers. We first started in a Nissan hut in the World War II, which was part of the RAF camp to cope with the amount of folk was there, and they actually made cheese and milk to cope with the amount of soldiers and everybody that was there. And then it moved on to a purpose-built facility in the 1950s. And here it is now today, which we moved to in 2001, which is a purpose-built facility. So you can just see the 2 maps compare in Orkney of where all the farms used to be and what we have now. So from doing the dairy, it's really allowed us to kind of have, not that we would need it, but a slight escape clause if anything does fold with the creamery. Hopefully it would never happen, but it has given us that backup. So as much as us, there's loads of other dairy products in Orkney. So you've got your Orkney cheese, which is very well known. The Island Smokery, who smoke Orkney cheese and do loads of different flavours. We've got Orkney milk, Grimbister cheese, which is hugely popular. Orkney ice cream, which is all over Scotland. Westry Wife, which is a cheese they make on one of the smaller islands, as well as Burnside cheese, which is a halloumi farmhouse style cheese. So as well as dairy products, Orkney is renowned for its food and drink. Loads of small producers making really great high quality food, which is one of the main attractions of folk coming to Orkney. So you've got your oat cakes, your smoked fish, salmon, jollies, Highland Park whiskey, which I'm sure a lot of you know about, gins, we've got rum, there's local bakeries, everything you can imagine is in Orkney. And it's great to actually be a part of the Orkney Food and Drink Network. So with folk coming up to Orkney to try tasting food, tourism booms in Orkney between April and September. That's the main time that we can make money, mainly from cruise liners. So we have 320,000 visitors that come over the year. £87 million generated in Orkney over the summer, which is a huge market to be a part of. Cruise liners, huge market in Orkney. We have, over the years, it's suddenly increased. We had 207 last year. I actually think it was more than that. And then next year, it's projected to be over 250. So yeah, it's definitely something that needs to be taken a look at, as well as, yeah, as food and drink as well, which is 13.5 million a year. So our way of capitalising on this was to build our little honesty shop, which is right outside the dairy. As I said previously, the farm's located between the two main, the Ring of Brodgar and Scarabray, the historic village. So we have a natural passing trade that goes past us every day. And the bun box has been a huge hit. It allows us to sell straight to the public, so we don't need to go through wholesalers. 90% of our products does go via wholesalers. And it has grown and grown this year, and it is probably one of the main incomers to the farm is the bun box. So it does really well. But yeah, I think that's me. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lara. And thank you for sharing, really honestly, your journey as well, because it's not been an easy one starting, and obviously, I'm sure a lot of businesses in this room can relate to some of the troubles of COVID, putting a halt to many plans as well. And I know you're taking it 1 month at a time, but good luck with the farm shop opening in the future. I'm sure there'll be even higher figures on that screen of people coming to Orkney to visit. But our final speaker this morning is Rhona Wallace, who is the Senior Manager, Business Growth and Development for Visit Scotland. Rhona is passionate about the role tourism can play in rural communities, and I'd like to say a huge thank you to Rhona, who stepped in very last minute, literally. I think she found out probably at midnight last night that she was doing this morning, so really thank you, Rhona, for stepping in and speaking to us. And she's going to be sharing the journey from Visit Scotland towards Scotland becoming a responsible tourism destination, and sharing some examples from the agritourism sector and some of the support that is available. Thank you, Rhona. Thanks. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. And it was about 10:30 last night. And then this morning there was a couple of wee changes too. So bear with me. And I'm probably doing this on behalf of my colleague Lynn Donnelly, who is our responsible tourism manager. So we'll just go through. So the net zero targets for 2045 is about 75% emission reduction by 2030. Climate change and tourism. So what it's all about? Tourism contributes between 8 and 10% of the global carbon emissions. So you wonder why we just don't cancel tourism. Well, we don't cancel tourism. We know we want to go local days, domestic days within Scotland and the UK, and we also want to travel abroad. And also our visitors do want to come and see Scotland. We have high demand post-pandemic. It was incredible the amount of demand that came in, particularly from the North American market. So it's how do we harness that and make it still right for the planet? Responsible tourism. I've got to borrow my colleagues' glasses as well. So here we go. So as part of Visit Scotland's role and the development of as a journey for a responsible destination, and what does that mean, ensuring that Scotland is a force for good? The responsible tourism definition clearly indicates that all actors in tourism, industry, government, visitors, need to take responsibility. The environment, social, as well as the economic impacts need to be considered, and 3 pillars of sustainability. The focus is on maximizing positive impact on tourism, not just minimizing the negative, and as Andrew mentioned, just about that greenwashing, and how tourism can really help generate host communities and the environment. And sustainability is the aim, responsible tourism practices how we get there. And for me personally, working with the agritourism sector, with Caroline and the team, is something that me and my colleagues really enjoy. Your passion and your can-do attitude as a sector is incredibly important, but also what you can actually deliver for the consumer. So how does it fit with the national policy on tourism? Scottish Ambitions climate change targets to be met by 2045. And the flow of this is into our national strategic for economic transformation and the vision for well-being economy, thriving economies across economic, social, and environmental dimensions. Looking at the renewed definition of success, and the principles of this strategy are to be fair, greener, wealthier society. So it is all about allowing our kids or our grandkids to be able to stay on the farm and actually work and live where they want to and bring up their families. So for yourselves, it is that important part of it. Scottish Tourism Strategy is the Outlook 2030, and I'm sure you've probably all heard about it. And we have a certain focus on long-term sustainable inclusive growth. And in partnership with the industry like yourselves, we need to support the development of those responsible practices, protect local communities, and move to a lower carbon economy. So what does that mean for Visit Scotland? It's pretty much embedded, and Riddle, my old boss, I wish you weren't listening to me here, but there we go, was embedded, and he was instrumental in embedding it across all of our directorates, and each and individual within Visit Scotland. It is part of our normal day, and it's what we think about as we move through. Our vision and our purpose, I've touched on already, but it's basically how we play our role within that environment, within our own operations internally, as well as encouraging those industry communities and destinations and visitors, and our strategic partners as well. How we go about doing this is 4 pillars. The transition to lower carbon economy, that's tackling the climate change. And I'll go on to where our visitors are coming from and what their spend is and how we play an important part on the influence that we're doing for those visitors. The inclusion, to making sure that we're removing and reducing barriers to access to tourism. And I know a lot of you do that within your own businesses. Newton Farm example is an excellent example of that. Thriving communities, supporting the community health and well-being, and sharing this prosperity through regional and seasonal spread. We can make sure that that local engagement on a destination level and that businesses' needs are not selfishly imposed on the impacts on the communities. And I think as farmers, you're all fully aware of that. And then safeguarding our natural and cultural heritage for the future, protecting our biodiversity and our landscapes, promoting cultural heritage from our buildings to food and drink, our Gaelic language, the Scot, and our own local dialect, the music, the culture, and our language. These are key things to consider, and carrying the capacity of sites to minimizing pressure and encouraging visitors respectfully to enjoy it. So I just wanted to touch on the, I know Lindsay later on in one of the workshops is going to talk about some of the insights, so I left her with some of those slides. But I just wanted to touch on this spend. We have our local day spend, and cruise packs will be in those too. But within the domestic UK, so UK visitors to Scotland take about 80% visitations, and 20% is international. Yet when you look at the slide, you can see how important the international spend is. US visitors spend on average about 4 times more than the UK, and Europeans spend 2 times more. So they are here to spend more time here. So 10 years ago, sustainability might on people's radar, but it really wasn't asked for. There were some folk that would want to do it, travel by train and things like that, but they didn't really understand the meaning for it. Pre-COVID, there was a growing demand from it from Europe, from sure. COVID has accelerated the demand for that. So they're all looking now for those sustainable. They want to stay longer, they want to make a difference. In the USA, they don't talk about green or sustainability. The traveller talks about meaningful travel, and it's what they can feel about doing that long-haul flight and then spending more time with in those locations and getting to know people. So it's meaningful for them, but they're also wanting to give that back. And that's sometimes by taking part and helping out on the farm or planting trees or whatever it might be. So destination net zero. So Scotland's destination to net zero, it's a sports transition to lower economy. And we recognise a transition to lower economy as a journey. It's certainly, just as Andrew said, it is all about starting. There's a great video by an actor, and he talks inch by inch. So everything that we do in terms of our own personal, our business, and how we influence that community to do the right thing. So we're looking at a variety of ways where we start. It's all about data, and as Caroline mentioned earlier, anything we do, any funding you're trying to get for data really helps drive that forward. So we're actually looking at that benchmark, and then what the measurements what we're going to do with that, adopting that net zero for 2045 target, and looking at best practices. We've recently just signed a new partnership again with Visit Flanders, and it is all about sharing that knowledge across the globe to making sure that as a collective, and it's not just about Scotland or the UK, it is about collectively as destinations we can share best practice and take that back out to industry. And how are we going to get there? What can we do along that journey to make sure that we are going and reducing those carbons? And what is stopping us? What's the barriers for us taking actions? What's the barriers for you taking actions in your own business? Just as Andrew said, what's your barrier about not putting solar energy in there, changing your contract to making sure it's 100% renewable? And then basically that's let's go. What's the focus on the action? So there's 4 pillars within that. The research and insights, what that's telling us in terms of net zero research, what's the business journey to net zero, and how can we help make sure that we're actually making a difference in what we're doing each on a daily basis, monthly, weekly, and annually. And that awareness and engagement, sharing best practice, advice, and support through building a climate action hub on visitscotland.org, which we've just recently done, and have a look at it when you get a chance. And supporting places such as Visit Glasgow and other destinations to make sure that they're making sure those stakeholders are engaging with their local businesses and supporting their journey towards net zero, because each region has different challenges. The Destination Action Plan is to keep momentum going, and we're wanting to make sure that the public sector partners, South of Scotland, Scottish Enterprise, Highlands and Islands Enterprise, and all those other partnerships that we can actually build towards that plan. An example of those to make sure that we are not crossing over as public agencies, and as a business you're able to find what route to get the support that you need. We're looking at visitors. As the climate crisis deepens and global awareness increases, we need to act as well, and that increasingly driven demand by consumers. They're wanting to know what destinations and businesses are doing. So whatever you do, make sure all your staff are aware, and I'd really recommend the climate literacy training. I've just done it myself. I've got to do the last module. But it really helps to kind of bring it to the forefront. And the younger generation from me, which I'm getting older, they're certainly demanding it. And I was just talking to some hoteliers yesterday, and their staff are actually wanting to know what they're doing and comfortable with some of those practices. So accreditation really helps you on that journey as well. Research from the likes of Booking.com and Expedia and others indicates that sustainable travel is no longer an ambition for few, but of many. So they're really starting to look at that, and I think that's going to even accelerate more. So there is an element of green hushing, so businesses being nervous about taking their, to shouting about what they're doing already. But what it's the complete opposite of greenwashing. So it's people that are doing the right thing, but they just don't want to be taken up to task on what they're claiming they're doing, and they're not necessarily doing it right. So, but you do make sure that on your websites, when you have visitors, that all your staff know what you're actually doing, because the visitor is actually looking to hear that from you. And everyone knows it is a journey. So visitors play an important role in that part, as well as your businesses, as yourselves, and making sure that you're running as efficiently as possible. And the shop local is perfect, making sure that you're working with hoteliers, making sure that they've got your produce in there, if that's possible. Food miles, reducing those food miles is really important, and that's something that's very easily translatable to a consumer. They seem to understand that quite easy. So it's time for action. What can you do? Make sure you're up on your climate literacy. Have a look at our climate action plan. Start collecting that data and making sure that if what you don't know, share that with us, and as agency then, and with Caroline, we'll start helping you with plans. Just wanted to share about 3 different slides on 3 businesses that have taken that journey. So Agritourism Red Kites, just along for myself at Doon. They recognised the red kites, the importance of it. They created that visitor experience. They can do feeding in the winter, and that is very unique, and it's very local to locals as well as domestic visitors and international. And by doing that, they were able to create a visitor experience. Treshnish and Han cottages, green accredited, and basically they were referenced as one of the top green accredited businesses in what they're doing. Every little touch point that they do within there is biomass installed at your charging point for electric cars. They've got recycling shed, and they're working with local employers as tradesmen as much as possible. And then the last one is our Bicky Distillery. Ian, unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it today, so you've got me, so I thought I'd share what he's been doing. And he launched his first Scotland potato vodka tatty bogle using the wonky potatoes that were being rejected. And from there, he has built an incredible business, drive-by hydrogen fuel, and they've been Scotland's distilling incredibly important our Bicky from the rye Scotch whisky. So they're really leading in terms of that drink experience. They built a visitor experience. They do a field to bottle, field to farm, farm to fork experiences, and they're taking that to the North American market, and he's doing incredibly well with it. So the support you might need is Visit Scotland's industry relationship managers. We've got Claire and Donald who are outside if you want to have a chat to them. Climate Action Plan tool on visitscotland.org. Contact Business Energy Scotland. We've got insights and research on visitscotland.org as well. And get in touch with us, net zero inquiries, or speak to Caroline and ourselves. And the challenges you might have will be shared with multiple other farms. So the more we share together, we learn, and then we can move forward from there. And that's it. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rhona. And so I think you've given us a solution to our labour crisis here as well. There's a lot of Americans seeking meaningful travel. They can come and plant trees and work here as well. So. Yes. But we're going to move straight into questions. You've got a little bit less time this morning, and I see quite a few have been coming in on the Slido app. But I just wanted to check with everyone again that you do have the code if you've not been able to get access. And it's 702-3367. I'll just say that once more. It's 702-3367, and there are quite a few coming in, so you can vote which questions you'd like to be asked, and they'll rise up to the top as well. And any that we're not able to ask this morning, we're going to put a blog out at the end, so we will try and get through to all the questions. So, but first of all, I would ask, is there anybody in the audience who would like to kick off with asking a question before I go to the app? Any burning questions? Okay, well there's plenty on here, so I'm going to go to the most popular one this morning. It's for you, Andrew, and it's any advice that you can share to encourage couples getting married with them to reduce their environmental impact. The eco-wedding charter you were mentioning earlier, did it help or hinder your bookings?
Well, a bit of both, but maybe it helps bring in the kind of bookings that we're looking for. So weddings traditionally are quite high impact. You know, there's a lot of waste produced, and there's a lot of travel involved, and so on. So, you know, it's not seen as a particularly sustainable thing to do, I'm afraid, to get married. And then you have children. Oh dear. But yeah, so the wedding charter, it's definitely made a difference in terms of attracting the kind of people that we want to attract. So maybe they're more conscious of the impact of getting married, and you know, there's an educational role in that as well. You know, not a lot of people know about the impact, for instance, of flowers, you know, and the whole kind of floristry thing. So it's an ongoing process, but yeah, overall, it's definitely helped.
Thank you. And another one that's just come in, Rhona, and I'm going to direct this one to you. And quite a few people are asking, where would you recommend their team does climate literacy training?
Keep Scotland Beautiful run it. So if you look up Keep Scotland Beautiful, they run a training. It's 2 half-day sessions. They'll do it online. They do it on a regional basis as well, but Agritourism may be able to just set one up and then you all work on it. It's very interesting.
And a question for Lara. Are your wholesalers mostly within Orkney or on the mainland too, and does it depend on the product?
Yeah, we don't sell anything off Orkney yet, as logistically it's a bit of a nightmare, because in Orkney the only way you can get produce off the island is in big Arctics, so it's a big, large scale, but there's a huge gap for someone to utilise that, because there must be at least 10 to 15 producers in Orkney which would utilise smaller scale refrigerated transport on and off the island. So yeah, we're just in Orkney at the moment, but the cheese will hopefully go into the mainland this next wee while, if we can get it done.
And Rhona, I'm going to come back to you for this question. So this person, I think that's Freda Scott Park, has asked this question, and she was saying that there's so many Visit Scotland resources to use, but so little time to dip in and to benefit. Online workshops do help. Is there a plan to run a series of net zero webinars?
No, but I'll ask Lynn to do it, and she'll do it.
Great. That sounds wonderful. And I'm going to scroll. Gosh, you're all asking lots of questions now. Right, this one here, and Lara, this is something I wanted to ask you about as well, and it's how important sustainability means in terms of sustaining the family farm and farming culture. And you obviously put up that slide earlier which showed that we've gone from 115 dairy farms in 1950 to 11. So how important is it maintaining sustainability? And you've obviously added value to your business within that. Is that a necessity?
Yeah, I would say so. For us especially, like, as I say, me and my brother have just come into the farm, we've just become partners this last couple of years. And it's kind of allowed my parents to take the pressure off a little bit, so they know that there's a route forward for us. And I think it's just kind of thinking outside the box a little bit, which folk can sometimes be scared to do. But I think if you have an idea and it works, then go for it. But yeah, I think especially, it's the generation thing, is folk tend, if they've done it and it always works, then why change it? But as you've seen from everybody in here, there's such a market and different things that you can do that would bring an income that's not necessarily the specific route of farming that you're in. So yeah.
And Andrew, how do all the businesses work within the Comrie Croft brand financially? Are they tenants? Does the shop buy their products, or is it run as one business? So
it's a mix of all of the above. The 6 of the enterprises are one company. So that's the kind of, I hesitate to call it the core, but it's the bit that keeps all our staff paid, put it that way. But in terms of the independent but kind of collaborating businesses, we tend to go for a revenue sharing model. A small percentage of their top line revenue, so that our interests are really aligned in terms of making it work, and it helps kind of incubate those businesses to begin with, because they're not paying much to start with, and then as they grow, we all benefit.
Thank you. Is there any questions in the audience? This gentleman here, do we have a microphone? Oh, well, wait, and if you're happy to introduce yourself and where you're from as well, that would be great. Oh, 1 second, we're just getting one to you. Thank you for waiting.
Hello, there we go. Hiya, I'm Oliver Lake. I own Thorabella Farm with my wife up in Dallas. So my question is for you, Andrew. I love what you got going on there, and it looks really cool. It's kind of something what we're kind of inspiring to, maybe not such large scale. My question is, you've got quite a lot of infrastructure there, and did you have a lot of issues with planning and things going forward? Because from a lot of stuff that a lot of people wouldn't talk about, is it's one of the main issues that hold a lot of people back from progressing their business.
The short answer, yes. The slightly longer answer, yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think it's the chief planner here at the moment. Can I say things bad about planning? but yeah, I mean, like for instance, when the market garden, when we started that, it was a brand new business, had no income. I'm still live here. And the planning we were asked to apply for planning for polytunnels, and they did it on a square foot basis, so it was going to be about 7,000 quid just to apply for a new business with no money. But you find ways, don't you? So yeah, we
And once you started having those conversations, were they quite receptive to trying to help you? Because obviously when you started, you were quite small, and then obviously you got quite, not saying big now, but you're getting very...
Yeah, I'd love to say yes, but to be honest, it's still a battle.
Still a pain in the arse.
Yeah, to be honest.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Ron, I'm going to direct this one at you. It's coming from David Smith, and he's asked, we promised to build back better after COVID. As we see some places busier than ever, packed airports, cruise ships queuing up, are we building back better? And I know you touched on that very briefly at the start of your presentation.
I guess it's not just one person, one organisation's role to do that. The pandemic, the post-pandemic, the visitations, we can't stop them coming, but what we can do is make sure that the visitor is spending longer. We're doing a pilot program with a North American tour operator, which will be about lowering carbon itineraries and pushing them out and demonstrating that those are actually ones that will sell. And that's going to be shared out with other destinations and other tour operators. It means that the tour operator will only book green accredited businesses, and it will reduce the dwell time, it will increase the dwell time so that they're not spending and going around all the top places, and it means about them actually spending longer and spending more in the one place. It's not going to be an overnight, but that is a good starter for us to actually, and that is why we work with international tour operators to educate them on how to do Scotland and sharing that benefit.
Andrew and Lara, this is a question to both of you from Jen Stewart. You're both clearly on a journey with your plans for sustainability, ensuring your businesses are future fit. Do you have a succession and exit plan in place? Who would like to take that first?
I can go first. Yeah, as I was just saying, me and my brother will hopefully take on the farm. And as I was saying, the dairy has allowed us to have that slight exit plan if we need to. In the future, we'll hopefully go into robots and build like a farm shop cafe type situation. So if it comes to that we do go out with the dairy, we still have a feasible income into the farm. But it has, when we first started this, we had no idea what we were going to do, and it was a bit of an issue in the family deciding how we were going to go forward, but slowly but surely we've figured it out. Yeah.
And yeah, we are thinking about it, and we're currently looking at an employee ownership trust as a strong kind of possibility, and there's good support from Scottish Enterprise to help look into the ins and outs of that kind of thing.
And Andrew, just this question has come in for you as well. I'll ask you a second one in a row here. But how easy was it for you to go about getting the panels? Have you only got 50 kilowatts, or have you got more? And because I believe they're struggling to get progress on this.
So, what was the first part of the question?
How easy did you go about getting the panels? I think they're having struggles themselves.
Right. This actual supply wasn't difficult at all. I don't know if there's supply issues these days, but certainly in 2018 it was easy. I know installers can be difficult to get hold of, and I guess for that I would just say, ask around. Ask me. I know one or two good ones, depending on where you are. There are people out there. I think the Energy Savings Trust is quite. They can't recommend people, but they can, give you installer and details. So, that's another possibility.
And that's true. Any of the speakers on the stage, they're going to be. I believe you're going to be around for the rest of the day, the next couple of days. So do grab anybody to ask a question. Is there any more from the floor before I ask a question? Okay, so we've managed to get through quite a lot, but something I'd like to ask, and maybe this is from a journalist perspective, but it's been quite hard as a writer sometimes talking about sustainability because it's not very sexy. And I guess my question for you is, how do we make it sexy so that consumers are interested, so they want to maybe pay more for their products as well? So how do you incorporate sexy sustainability into your marketing strategy?
Who are you asking?
I'm looking at two people on the floor here who I think do it brilliantly at Guardswell Farm. Have a look at their website, and hats off to you guys, because I think it's kind of it's young and it's fresh and it's people are looking for that kind of thing. So I'm not sure it's totally impossible to make it look sexy, but I would look to role models like that.
Rhona.
I guess visitors looking for personalisation, they're looking for immersion. They want to meet local people, and that's been around for a long time, and you just need to think back to when you had your best experiences on holiday yourself. It's those connections. So it's again that meaningfulness, the connections with individual people. It's your story, it's your history. I mean, you're not a cheesemaker, it's a generational farm. That is the story, and it's bringing that out on your website, making sure it's on as part of your tours or every touch point. Even if you don't do a tour, you do a cafe or a food source, just make it sure that it's on all your touch points and bring it fresh and lively, and hit that younger demographic as well, because they are the future generation and they're the ones that are actually demanding it.
Thank you, Rhona. And Lara, to finish off?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it will come naturally, because definitely the younger generation just naturally look for recyclable stuff, the stuff that's ethical. And yeah, I think it will naturally come, but it's just going with it rather than against it. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. And a huge thank you to all of our speakers this morning, Lara, Andrew and Rhona, for answering so many questions. I know not all of them have been picked up just now, because we do need to move on to lunch. But again, we will be covering some of these in a blog. But can I give you a round of applause, and thank you so much for your time.